When you think of an icon, someone legendary, who comes to mind? Could be someone like Morgan Freeman, Oprah Winfrey, Jordan Peele, or Gabby Douglas. Their success as influential African Americans is groundbreaking, but it wouldn't be possible without the political waves made by the Civil Rights Movement, a monumental revolution led by the American people and the Big Six: A. Philip Randolph, James Farmer Jr., John Lewis, Whitney Young Jr., Roy Wilkins, and most notably, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Hello, Kenwood. I'm Alex, representing the Black Student Union, and I'm your host for today's MLK presentation. I would like to present an original piece of spoken word from Peyton and Azriel, fellow members of the Black Student Union.
I'm Peyton.
I'm Azriel.
And this is a piece of spoken poetry we wrote together.
I have no despair about the future, spoken by Dr. King with nothing less than pure hope. As I look at our world today, I ask myself, what have we created?
We have created a world where 39% of children have no access to education. We have created a world where 1.9 million of our youth is depressed. We have created a world where 81% of women have been sexually harassed.
As our justice system does not favor people of color, it is made to work against us. A knife piercing through flesh. We are unarmed, although they see our blackness as a weapon.
Time and time again, they show us how they make a mockery out of a man, as they continue to kneel on George Floyd's neck, as they beat Ernie Serrano to death as he pleaded in pain, as they arrested Dr. King for protesting for his rights. They took his title of a man that was carried with pride and disgrace and dignified it into failure. But what they didn't know is that Dr. King wielded his weapon in a way of faith and love, inspiring others to do so. So in the words of Dr. King,
our feet are tired, but our souls are rested, sparking the flaming community and our differences. But in all honesty, we do not know the power that prosecutions speak into reality. We strike each other with our words,
dehumanizing and disgracing our worth. But what if we allowed that pain to produce change? As Dr. King once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to injustice everywhere. If only we were fearless enough to carry out the dreams of those who fought before us, to carry out the dream of community that Dr. King once spoke, to carry out the dream of equal rights for all that Coretta Scott King once spoke, to carry out the dream of peace that Gandhi spoke.
You're only in your youth for so long. Use it, be bold and ambitious, protest and create change. Allow yourself to dream fearlessly like Dr. King once did.
A message of love and compassion with Kentwood. Dr. King once said, "Hatred paralyzes life, love releases it. Hatred confuses life, love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life, love illuminates it." We had an opportunity to sit down with an influential person here at Kentwood. His name is Coach Nick. Coach Nick's story is one of rising up out of the ghetto to becoming a mentor that he needed when he was our age.
Well, my name is Coach Nick. Actually, my name is Nicholas Abraham. I'm with an organization called Communities in Schools. I actually do a lot of mentorship, and basically it's just to empower kids to understand what it takes to become successful in life, the academic piece, the behavior, the character, the disciplines that it takes to be successful.
Did you have anyone kind of like you when you were in high school to help you? Like no resources or
That's why I do what I do today, because I had no direction, no one helped me, no one gave me guidance. I was just kind of on my own. I was reasonably lucky to have a family of really old people. I had a great uncle that I spent a lot of time with, even though it's kind of this is kind of embarrassing to share, but I had a great uncle that passed away at 101. He passed away in 1971, and so that means that he was born in 1870, and that means that he was the son of a slave. So I spent a lot of time with him, and he wasn't like a mentor, but he did share a lot of his experiences, how things had changed and how things had evolved from the time that he was a child, which has helped me today.
So, what area did you grow up in?
Well, I grew up in a very fantastic area of America called Berkeley, California. Mm-hmm. I grew up there during the 1960s. I was there during a lot of the civil unrest that was going on. The Vietnam War was going on, and if you study history, UC Berkeley was several political rallies and actually riots on campus, tear gas, National Guard being called out, being not able to walk up the street because the National Guard. It was a very, very different time, but it was all about love and peace, and we're not about all love and peace now. It's completely gone opposite way.
Tell us a little bit about your experience before you moved to Berkeley.
Well, fortunately, unfortunately, I grew up in a very segregated area of Oakland, California. I went to an all black school. Um, some of the experiences I had there were sometimes rusty water, uh, rain coming through the ceilings, broken windows, books in the library not having covers and pages missing. It was not the best experience. Going from being bused in 1966 to a Berkeley school called Garfield High School in the Berkeley Hills was life altering because I went to a school that had basically like this school, have all the resources, the great library, great teachers, great amenities, and then it was integrated school. It was a melting pot, and it was life altering because I didn't know anything other than being in an all segregated school.
What's your experience with Black Student Union in school?
Well, my high school was actually the first or one of the very first in America to have a Black Student Union. At the time, I was very much involved with that. It was very empowering. At our school, we had a voice. I actually went to high school that had 6,000 students. So it was a very large school. So it was a very big student union, very diverse. And we had a lot of things done because we had a voice on campus and we had an opportunity to make a lot of change and have a lot of things that really kind of cater to our specific needs, like dances and things like that, and African Americans assemblies and things like that, where guest speakers came in and famous people came in and spoke, and it was very empowering. Because when I was in high school, the Black Student Union wasn't all black. We had because it was a unified Black Student Union. We had a bigger voice because of the unification and having so much diversity involved. And when you have a club like this, it's very empowering because you're going to have a variety of students. And when you're able to mix those students together, it sometimes brings the ones that are struggling up and give them hope. Because that's why a lot of our students academically are struggling, that are kids of color, because they have no hope, they feel like there's no future for them. When they don't realize that the future is learning to learning all you can while you're having a free education, hopefully go to college or trade school or somewhere, and empower your brain to become a professional at something.
My struggles with joining Black Student Union is that I know I'm like multiracial, so I know I'm not fully Black. And it's kind of like do I belong there? Can I show up? So I think showing up and seeing that there's kids of all races in there, unifying, talk about your experience just as a colored kid too. I think there's community and unification in that too.
So much so, absolutely.
I think it's easier to talk to people, who look like you, who have different experiences that you guys can connect with. And that's what I think is just so great about Black Student Union. And like you said, I hope one day we can have as much of a voice as your school did.
Have those experiences helped you where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It gave me a different perspective of people. And I got that from being in a melting pot with people from everywhere. A lot of students today, it's amazing to me, and it's scary because my generation fought for the opportunity for everyone to be able to go to school and have a good education. We died, we water hose beat by, I was in riots. I know how hard we fought and generations before me fought for everyone to have the opportunity to go to school like this, get a good education, have opportunity to do things in life. And when I see students that are resistant to that, it hurts my heart because I know that so many suffer for that. And for students not to really understand that education is one of the keys of life success, to have a great career, have a business, have a family, and things like that. It's just like we're going backwards instead of going forwards.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King,
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King,
the apostle of nonviolence
and the leader of the nonviolent civil rights movement in the United States.
The announcement here that Dr. King had died.
Dr. King was standing on the balcony of a second-floor hotel room tonight.
A sniper's bullet cut down Dr. King as he stood on a hotel balcony in Memphis.
It was a very great shock for something like this to happen.
I got a Facebook notification from my student body president when I were in high school. We've stayed in touch over the years, and asked where we were at the day that Martin Luther King was killed. And I shared that in the 9th grade, and the day it happened, the school was shut down and kids cried. And it was such an emotional day. I'll never forget it. It was like all hope was lost, because he had mesmerized the country, had brought together all nationalities together for one purpose, to unify the country and live in peace. And when he passed away, it was just the most devastating day of my life up to that point. And I'd like to share that with the students to understand that what he stood for was not what I'm seeing today. He was talking about unification. He was talking about peace and harmony and love. The big thing was love, and I don't see that anymore. And that really hurts me.
I love your message on, like you said, love, peace, and just being kind, because that's something that Kentwood needs right now. You know, in our community, in our generation, I feel like there's so much hate right now. There's so much anger towards people and just how we're living. So yeah, just being kind, like you said, what we used to fight for, showing that.
Okay, well, thank you for being here for us to interview. And as he said, he's in the library. As soon as you come into the left, please come visit him, maybe. Say hi to him if you see him in the halls, and yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To paraphrase what Coach Nick said, never give up and keep pushing through challenges. And remember, love always prevails. We treat these opportunities as givens. And as I said, people had to fight for them. And we need to actually take action and use our opportunities. And I know we've heard these messages a lot from teachers, staff, adults, parents, that we need to show compassion, be kind, show love, but as students, we need to uphold these values. We need to prove to the people that don't believe us, people that don't support you, that we can do it, and we know we can. You just gotta show it. To continue the message of Dr. King, I would like to introduce you to James from the Association of Washington Student Leaders. He will talk to us about his story and how the message of love and acceptance helped form who he is today.
Hello, my name is James Lehman, and I am the proud director of the Association of Washington Student Leaders, and what a treat it is to spend this time together with you. It is no secret that today we will spend some time learning, discussing, and connecting through the lessons and teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King believed that a world where no matter what we look like, where we came from, the languages we spoke, how we experienced the world should deny us the power and opportunity to know and experience transformative love. A story about my journey. My mother was a white woman who decided in the mid-1980s to start a family. The means to do that meant entering the world of adoption. My mother was somebody who radiated and believed in the love that we are speaking about today. She adopted a black child, me, and I became her son. She didn't care what I looked like, the color of my skin, or the fact that we would probably have some adversity as her being a white woman adopting a black child. Nope. She anchored herself in love. When I think about my mom, the lessons she taught me, her way of being, and her relentless commitment to love, it reminds me of Dr. King's vision for our world. My mother's life lessons remind me of one of Dr. King's most famous quotes. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. How can we create spaces and places, just like my mom did, where strangers and even people around us feel safe, loved, and connected to the greater world? Now, I'm going to flip the script on you here a little bit. I'm not going to share a Dr. King quote because there was somebody else who is vital to the tapestry of what Dr. King represented then and now. His wife, Coretta Scott King. She was an author and human rights activist, and because of her and her lobbying efforts, we now have Martin Luther King Day. In 1983, Coretta Scott King saw her 15 years worth of lobbying work finally come to fruition in an act of Congress that made the third Monday of every January officially Martin Luther King Day. He was the first non-president to have a national holiday in his honor. Coretta Scott King said this, "Love is such a positive force. It is there for everyone to embrace that kind of unconditional love for all humankind. That it is the kind of love that impels people to go into the community and try to change conditions for others." How can we bring love to others? How can you make your school, community, and world better through the love and positivity that you put into it? Our collective responsibility is not just to leave every place better than we found it, but to leave every place full of love. No generation is better equipped to make this happen than you watching this right now. No generation has the resources, talent, and heart to bring Dr. King and Coretta Scott King's life work to life in real time than you. What choices can we make today to create change, hope, love, and belonging in our schools and world? First, the choice to listen. When we prioritize listening, we let others know that they are essential. And what they have to share with us is also important. We gotta listen, folks. So let's start with that. Second, the choice of grace. We are learning how to people with people again. So developing a sense of grace and patience for others is important. Dr. King said we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. Third, the choice to learn. Taking time to learn about each other is not only healthy, but it is healing. When we push past cliches, facts, and opinions and can learn about each other's hopes and dreams and passions and goals, we open up new worlds of connectedness and growth. Take time to learn about others different from you. That is where the magic happens. Fourth, the choice to believe. Each of us has brilliance and talents and gifts all within us. We need to believe in the power of those gifts. We need to remember our enoughness and believe in our enoughness. Each of us needs to believe that we are smart enough and talented enough and brave enough and capable enough of changing the world. I choose to believe in each and every one of you. But do you believe in yourself? And finally, the choice to celebrate. In the room that you are in, wherever you are watching this, there are people around you who have so much awesomeness within them. We need to celebrate the awesomeness of others. We need to take time to celebrate each other and create a brighter, more spectacular world. When we celebrate each other, we create the love that Dr. King believed in. Today, find a moment, 10 seconds of your day, to celebrate the awesomeness of somebody else. You won't regret it. Do it today, 10 seconds. I dare you to do it.
Now that we heard a little bit about James' story and Coach Nick's story, I would like to share a little bit about my story. As I've said already, my name is Alex, and I'm half Black and Hispanic. I grew up raised by my mom, a single mom, who is Hispanic from Chile. She's an immigrant and has always been pretty focused on our culture, although she never taught me Spanish, as she wanted me to be able to fit in with the kids in our generation. The one way that I connected to my Black culture and Hispanic culture was through music. Growing up, she played music, whether it was Hispanic music, whether it was music from the early 2000s and before the 2000s. I always heard it a lot growing up, and it's now a big part of who I am today. Although you might not realize, you're also connected to Black culture, Hispanic culture, any other culture, just by listening to music as well. I know you've probably heard rappers, R&B artists. Anybody from their culture is representing their culture by singing, and listening to music by them is also being involved in that culture. The way you can connect with Black culture besides music is through art. A Kentwood student, Talina creates art in the style of the Boondock.
Music is Black history. Music is salvation. Music in biblical texts gave voice to the sentiments of enslaved Africans who were searching for freedom.
How can somebody have ownership of your body, yet you're still able to find ways to create? A part of my ancestry is that we will not be defined by the pain, but we will transform it into something new, something beautiful.
Thank you, Talina, for sharing your passion with us.
Hello, Kentwood High School. My name is Erin Jones. Some of you know me. I hear that there are some former Meridian and Meeker and Mill Creek students there. Y'all may have seen me at some point. For those who don't know me, I am a career educator. I started teaching in North Philadelphia 30 years ago, and then I moved to South Bend, Indiana, where I taught middle school, and then Tacoma, Washington, and then Spokane, before I became the first Black woman in the state of Washington to run for any statewide office. I ran to lead our public schools in 2016. I lost that race by 1 point. I'm an overcomer, which I believe you all are too. You're conquerors, right? And so I invite you today to think about yourself as a conqueror. We have some stuff to conquer after the last few years. It's been a hard few years. But this is my favorite season of the year, getting students to think about a man who gave his life to make this country better. A man named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have really admired Dr. King since I was 14 years old. And part of what I admire about him is that he was committed to service. He was committed to doing things and being places that were uncomfortable, but that were going to make his community better, that were going to make this country better. And so today, as I think about what I want you to take away from my message, I want you to think about 3 things: service, serving people, courage, and love. Because I think those are the 3 things that he absolutely was committed to and he gave his life for. He was a pastor who had no plan of being the face of the civil rights movement, but someone asked him, hey, would you stand up and take charge here? And he said yes. Students, when someone asks you to take charge and to be in front or to lead something from the back that will make your school better, say yes. Say yes to the hard things that will make your community better. Do it even and especially if it's hard. So I invite you today to think about a way that you could serve. And not just picking up trash, but service in a way that makes a group of people in your community have a better life. Second thing, courage. Courage is doing and saying the right thing, even when it's unpopular, especially when it's hard, even when it costs you something. Courage. Here's what Dr. King said about courage. A man dies when he refuses to stand up for that which is right. A man dies when he refuses to stand up for justice. A man dies when he refuses to take a stand for that which is true. What are you willing to take a stand for? Who are you willing to take a stand for? Are you willing to live a life that's bigger than you? How could you stand up and speak up for something greater than yourself? I promise you it'll make you feel better and it'll make your community better. So we talked about service, courage, love. Love is the hardest one. Love is not the mushy kind of smooch. Please don't do that. We're still in the pandemic. It's not that kind of love that we're talking about. We're talking about the kind of love that chooses to see and treat and speak to people with kindness and dignity, even and especially when they don't like us and when they are not like us. Right now, we adults are not leading by example in that. We are the worst haters, adults. We hating on each other on Twitter, hating on each other on TikTok. We have to do a better job of showing up with love to people, even and especially when we don't agree with them. And that's the kind of love that I call you to today. So why do I care so passionately about this man that was gone 3 years before I was born? I care passionately about Dr. King because from my early childhood, I knew that I wanted to serve. I wanted to live a life that mattered to more than just me and my family. I was actually orphaned at birth. So some of you have heard my story. I was born out of the body of a white woman Obviously, my daddy was not white because, yo, this is my fabulous natural hair. So I was born out of the body of a white woman who had had a baby with a black man. And back in the 70s when I was born, it was unacceptable for her to keep me. So she didn't. She literally delivered me in a hospital and walked out and never came back. So I have never met my biological parents. I was sent to an orphanage. I was adopted by 2 educators from northern Minnesota. But they are both teachers, and they decided we are going to adopt babies that nobody wants. And so they came to the orphanage one day when I was 3 months old and asked the director, who are the babies no one wants? That's who we want to adopt. And they walked through the nursery, and my dad saw my crib, and he said, oh, she's the one we want. I was chosen by a family. So if you're a foster kid, you're an adopted kid, maybe your parents are divorced, I'm going to tell you, it's not about where you start, it's about where you finish. Family sometimes is who you choose. And who chooses you? So if you looked at my beginning, you would never imagine that I would someday meet President Obama, get to play basketball in 12 countries. I've done a lot of stuff. But if you saw the very first day that I was alive and left in a hospital, and you saw me laying in a crib in an orphanage, you probably would have written me off. Oh, nothing good's going to come out of her. Y'all, sometimes the worst things open the door to the best things. So I would be adopted by this couple. They were disowned by their families. Like, we don't want to have anything to do with you because you adopted one of them. And in fact, my mom's mom would call me the N-word, like with the hard R, till I was 30 years old. And my dad, who is the most courageous human I know, he's also the nerdiest math teacher you will ever meet. Like, the nerdiest. Teachers, my dad carried chalk around in his pocket until the 90s. Like, you never know when you might have to do some math. That's my dad, and he's one of the bravest human beings ever. Because my dad said, we're not going to live in a country that doesn't love her, doesn't love me. Can you imagine choosing in your 20s to leave the country that you know for something else for your kid? That was my dad. So in 1976, my dad took a teaching job at the American School of The Hague in the Netherlands. The American school was founded as a way to take care of the children of the lawyers and the ambassadors at the United Nations World Court. And so here I was, this once orphaned girl, in a school with very powerful people's children. I would get to rub shoulders with ambassadors' children. Every American president who came to the United Nations came to my school, from Jimmy Carter to George Bush. I hosted President Bush's wife, Barbara Bush, when I was 18 years old, as a senior in high school. I got to host her for a day at my school. And here's what I learned by rubbing shoulders with really powerful people. Do you know that people with lots of money and titles aren't any better than you? They're not greater than you. Greatness is a choice that we get to make about how we want to move through the world. So here's another lesson. So I said already, service, courage, love. Do you know that being average is really easy? All average takes is showing up every day. Showing up at school, showing up in band, showing up on the football field, showing up on the basketball court, showing up in the classroom. Just showing up is average. I dare you to be great. It's not too late for you. I dare you to choose greatness. I chose really carefully how I spent my time and who I spent my time around. I absolutely believe Dr. King did the same. So I invite you to think about that for you. I ended up coming back to the United States for college on a scholarship. And it wasn't until I got to America that I realized teachers change the world. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. I thought they were much more important. And then I got to the United States of America and realized, oh my gosh, my parents have been changing the world every day. And I knew by the end of my first year of college, I want to be a teacher. And so I called my parents at 18 years old and said, I'm not coming back to Europe. I'm going to stay in America and I'm going to be a teacher like you. And I'm going to teach kids who look like me because they deserve to have the best teachers. Students, that was 32 years ago. that I made a choice to stay in America, and I never did go back. And I don't regret 1 second of it. But why do I love the story of Dr. King so much? Because he made sacrifices too. He chose to give up an easy life to do the right thing. He was courageous. And then he chose to love people even and especially when they didn't love him back. Do you know, at 30 years old, I would go meet my mother's mother for the first time. And she confessed to me that she had always thought me lesser because I had brown skin, and she apologized at 86 years old. And I chose to forgive her at 30. I was 30, she was 86. I chose to forgive her that day. And she died 3 months later. What if we'd had that conversation 40 years ago instead of 20 years ago? I missed 30 years of life with my grandma because we didn't talk about race. We didn't talk about these things. And so I invite you to talk about these things. I invite you to care about things that are hard. I want to close with my favorite Dr. King quote that I read as much for you as I read for me. And he said this just before he was assassinated. You may be 38 years old, as I happen to be, and one day some great opportunity stands before you and calls you to stand up for some great principle, some great issue, some great cause, and you refuse to do it because you're afraid. You refuse to do it because you want to live longer. You're afraid that you will lose your job, or you're afraid that you will be criticized, or that you will lose your popularity, or you're afraid that someone will stab you or shoot you or bomb your house, so you refuse to take the stand. Well, you may go on and live until you are 90, but you are just as dead at 38 as you would be at 90, and the cessation of breathing in your body is but the belated announcement of an earlier death of the spirit. Students, choose service today. Choose courage today. Choose love today. Please reimagine, re-envision what's possible for you, for your school, for our state. We need you. You matter. Take care.
This video isn't just about Black culture, it's about culture in general as a whole. Whether you're Asian, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, European, or mixed, we want you to feel included. No matter what race you are, you're welcome. Come celebrate our differences and gain understanding of the cultures of Kentwood. Thank you, Kentwood, for your time, and as you go throughout the rest of your day and this school year, spread the love and be kind to one another.